Prince and the Revolution's Purple Rain is one of the most iconic albums of all time, let alone the 80s. But here's the big question. Can a brand new OneStep edition from Because Sound Matters really be a legendary original pressing? So today on the Vinyl Narrative, I'm going to be digging into what's coming from this new OneStep edition, which is effectively an audiophile release, compare it to my OG pressing that I have in my hands here, but also give you my honest thoughts on whether or not this could be the definitive version of Purple Rain coming up in 2025 and whether or not it's worth picking up. So today, if you enjoy this video, please consider liking and subscribing to the Vinyl Narrative, because there's going to be loads more videos like this coming along in the future. And thanks for tuning in. Let's get into it. So why has Purple Rain been picked for an audiophile release? Well, it's an absolute iconic album. As I said in the intro, it's Prince's sixth studio album released in 1984, which was effectively both an album as well as a soundtrack to the semi-autobiographical accompanying film. And that cemented Prince as this kind of global superstar, if you will. And Prince and the Revolution just effortlessly kind of blended rock and pop and funk and soul in just a way that I don't think anyone else could at the time. An Oscar win, a Grammy win, as well as becoming one of the biggest selling soundtracks of all time. So for many people and many vinyl collectors, this is a cornerstone in their collection, and quite rightly so. It certainly is within mine. So for those of you who are perhaps new to the vinyl collecting community, you might be thinking, what is a OneStep and why is it so expensive? Well, it's probably best for us to look at the traditional vinyl production process itself before we consider what a OneStep is. So if we think of traditional vinyl is pressed in a way that you cut from the audio source to a lacquer. That lacquer is then used as a kind of mould, if you will, to create a metal father, and then the metal father is used to create a mould, which is effectively the mother. So you've got the father and the mother as the kind of steps in this process, and then from the mother you can create a metal stamper to create your vinyl in the factory. Now that's a kind of a multi-stepped process to get to the kind of end state of having a vinyl record. With the OneStep process, you're skipping numerous steps in that. So you're actually going to cut the lacquer from the audio source, whether or not that's a analog tape, a master tape, a flat master tape, or a digital source as well. You cut that lacquer and then you use that lacquer to create the stamper straight away. So effectively you're going lacquer to father, and the father is used as the metal stamper. So in theory, you're kind of reducing that generational loss. And as a result of cutting out those numerous steps, it means that you can only stamp so many copies before you're creating kind of fidelity loss in the vinyl quality from that father stamper that you've now got. So usually OneStep runs are very limited. They're usually in like kind of the low thousands. And the kind of big selling points as well of the OneStep releases are that they are using thick 180 gram or 200 gram vinyl, and they usually use the kind of famous super vinyl compound of Neotech vinyl compounds, which is very, very quiet. It's almost like you're not listening to vinyl at all. You're almost listening to a dead quiet CD quality recording. And then alongside that, obviously, you've got to have something to kind of warrant charging in the hundreds of dollars price range. You'll have like deluxe packaging or some sort of gimmick that comes with it, whether or not that's posters and things like that, or some sort of box set. So the idea is pretty simple around OneStep. You kind of you're trying to get the closest possible experience to kind of sitting in the mastering studio with the actual original master itself, whether or not that's the tape master or a digital master. So with all that in mind around the vinyl production process, let's actually dig into what's been announced with Purple Rain. So Because Sound Matters, they are a audiophile style label, and they've officially announced that they're going to be doing a OneStep edition of this legendary album Purple Rain. It's going to be limited to 6,000 copies, which is actually quite a lot for a OneStep edition. Previous OneSteps that I've seen are usually around 3,000, and that's actually what because Sound Matters have been producing up until now. So it's interesting that they've stepped this up to 6,000. So it sounds like they're going to be creating numerous kind of lacquers for this. I don't know. That's an interesting point to consider when you're buying this. But yeah, 3,000 copies is usually what they do. They're doing 6,000 for this, probably because it's a hot release as well. It's Prince's Purple Rain after all. It's going to be a 1LP edition cut from at 33 RPM and pressed on that 180 gram Neotech VR 900 D2 high performance vinyl. That is going to be cut and pressed at RTI. It's mastered by Levi Seitz, I think his name's Seitz or Seitz. I'm not too sure on the pronunciation of his last name, but Levi, he's getting a really amazing reputation in the vinyl community of just nailing the mastering on a lot of these reissues. But he'll be plating that at, cutting that at black belt mastering, and then it'll be plated and pressed at RTI in the US, which I think I've made it no secret they're one of my favourite pressing plants in the US. And then the packaging is going to be packaged by Stoughton Packaging. They're producing a gatefold single pocket tip-on jacket, which I think means this is the first gatefold edition of Purple Rain on vinyl, which is interesting. I don't think I've ever seen it on gatefold. I know the CD has come in a gatefold edition, but this is the first time on vinyl. And they'll also be producing a kind of a deluxe slipcase, which is very, very nice looking. Instead of the kind of standard Because Sound Matters slipcase, which is just a black slipcase with the album art in the centre, they've, of course, kept it very authentic, and they've gone purple instead of black, so it looks quite attractive. The gatefold sleeve itself, which will be inside the slipcase, will be a reproduction of the original sleeve in terms of picture quality. It sounds like they've got the source art files, which is great to hear. It will come with a poster, and it will also come with the original printed inner sleeve, the glossy, hopefully it will be glossy, inner sleeve that came with the originals. In terms of the source, this is where it gets really, really interesting. They are not cutting direct from the master tape, so this is not a AAA pressing. They're actually going to use a 192 kilohertz by 24-bit digital transfer of the original EQ'd analog master tape. And they've chosen to do that because they're saying they want to preserve the original master tape from overuse, which I think is interesting. It kind of makes sense as to why they're doing that. Because actually there was only ever one EQ'd master tape delivered by Prince to Warner Brothers. So they want to keep that intact as best they can, rather than just running that tape constantly to produce these lacquers, to do this OneStep. So it makes sense, they've done it once, created a digital transfer, and they'll cut from that. The price point for all this, the big question around the price. So this is very much a premium release. It's going to cost $99.98. So this is probably going to hit the UK for me at around £99, or up to 110, 112, depends on the exchange rate by the time it gets here. So this is very much for collectors, I think, that want the ultimate edition. And on paper, it probably is that, right? It's got all of the hallmarks of a high-end audiophile release, but, you know, I think it's going to be interesting to weigh in against what the original specs were of the original release. So in terms of that original release, I am very fortunate in that I have one. So I have a US first pressing on the Warner Brothers label from 1984. This version was cut by Bernie Grundman, which is, you know, Bernie is one of the best mastering engineers in the business, a fantastic reputation. And of course, this being a release in 1984, this is an all analog chain. So AAA release, cut directly from the original master tapes by Bernie Grundman. And this particular pressing, the US pressing, this is from the Allied pressing plant over in the US. And it's one of the best editions of Purple Rain I've ever come across. I went on a bit of a search last year for the ultimate version that was available at the time, and I found I think I ended up with 6 copies of Purple Rain. This was the best one. you know, and it has that collector's prestige effectively. It's a first pressing. It would have been what people bought on release week back in 1984. So it's, you know, a historically authentic cut for me to have in my collection. In terms of this version, so the one difference that you can kind of tell with this version, I don't know if you'll be able to see it in my sleeve, but the spine itself, you probably can't, it's not going to focus there. The spine itself is slightly different to other releases. So it's obviously got the catalogue number of 26110-1, and then it says Prince and the Revolution, music from the motion picture Purple Rain. And then it has, down the bottom, Warner Brothers Records Incorporated, printed in the USA. Now, a lot of releases, obviously the UK release won't have that, and none of the Europe and worldwide releases won't have that, only US ones. But that's a really good indicator as to which one you're picking up. And then the back cover's pretty similar, although there is some detail around printing and things like that at the bottom, which you can use as an identifier. But yeah, just a really nice sleeve. In terms of what extras you get with this as well, you get this printed inner sleeve, which has got some fantastic artwork from this era of Prince and the Revolution. And it also has the lyrics, which if I show you there, it should focus. Yeah, the original printed lyrics, which is always nice. I really like it when they have these sleeves. The only downside to them is that usually the inside of them is just kind of standard paper. And yeah, that doesn't fare too well for the vinyl itself. But then the last extra that you get is a poster. So I'm always very delicate with this poster. I don't like opening it up too much because it's very thin paper poster, which hopefully you can see there on the video. Just a lovely picture of Prince and the Revolution there, all the members there represented. And I believe, just a little fun fact for you, I think this poster itself is featured in the Goonies film. So in one of the very early scenes in the film, I can't remember the character's name, that's going to haunt me, the fact I can't remember his name, but in his bedroom you can see he's got loads of posters in this room, and right at the back behind his bed is a picture of Prince and the Revolution. I believe it is that very poster that is in the back. So nice little fact for you there, if you want to hunt that out when you next watch the Goonies. And then in terms of the vinyl itself, so I've put mine in a archive sleeve because yeah, I'm not a massive fan of this printed inners for the vinyl itself. But yeah, nice kind of glossy vinyl. It's very thin, actually. This is thin vinyl, and sometimes I don't mind that at all because it just feels like the compounds that would have been used back in the day just seems to last really, really well and a long time. This is, I would say, VG plus to near mint minus maybe. There is a slight scratch on, which track was it? I was listening to this last night, and I think it's on Computer Blue, but somehow this compound's just excellent. It doesn't come across at all. There's no ticks in it, no scratches that are audible, which is great. And this variant, I've got the run out details there, rather than save me trying to get the light just right to read them. This is variant 4 of this Allied pressing from 1984. So if you're looking for this in the wild, you want to be looking for the runouts that say 1-25110-A-SH5, and then you'll normally see a kind of stamped Allied logo, which looks just like a circle that's been stamped, but it is in fact an A if you looked really closely. And then followed by that logo, you've then got B19421-SH5SLM, and then a triangle, and then 68511-1. So there you go, that's just side A. I won't bother covering side B because I think there's enough numbers there for you to note down. Where this pressing really shines is in the mastering, and the sonics for me just really stand out. This, again, I did a massive shootout last year against 6 different copies, and this won by kind of heads and shoulders. It's really punchy and dynamic. It's got this fantastic upper and mid-range definition. Prince's vocals and the guitars and the synths just leap out. It's really high energy, and engaging listen. And it just drives the music forward, which is what you want with a lot of the tracks on this. This was like almost the perfect kind of pop album at the time, just full of hits, and you want high energy and everything like that in when you're listening to this, right? And it's also got that kind of fantastic, really famous Linn drum kick and snare sound that just hits on this pressing, especially on Computer Blue. That intro where it's got the kick drum counting the band in almost, just really thumps on my system. I love it. It maintains the excitement without kind of veering into distortion, which is what I found with some other pressings. Not the UK pressing. I remember that one was a bit dull and a bit lifeless. It was it's warm, but there was no excitement in it. So I was really pleased to put this on straight after, and really pleased that there's no distortion on it as well. It's a real tough balance, I think, when you're trying to make a master and cut a really engaging record and really exciting records. You can often veer too far into the kind of upper frequencies and suffer from distortion. But Bernie somehow mastered it, forgive the pun, on this pressing or edition rather, and that's something that I don't think the 2015 remaster was able to do, and I ended up selling that because I wasn't that impressed with it. I know Prince, that was the way Prince intended for it to sound in 2015 before he sadly passed away, but yeah, it just didn't do it for me. This is the version to get for me. So in short, I think this is the benchmark, and in my view this is going to be really hard for the OneStep to beat. And in terms, if we're doing a bit of a comparison against the two editions, even though, let's note that the OneStep is not out yet in our hands, so we can't necessarily review it as such, but if you look at the OneStep specs from what they're advertising, if they manage to deliver on it, you're going to get ultra quiet vinyl from that Neotech vinyl compound, potentially more detail and space around the instruments. And the one area it might actually step up above the original is in the lower frequencies. There's not a huge amount of bass on this record, especially on When Doves Cry. There's no bass. Which is always a fun thing to realise when you put it on. You're always like, oh yeah, well, there is no bass guitar on this, and it sounds still amazing. Still sounds amazing. There might be maybe a little bit more bass on this OneStep edition. That's the one thing I'd probably be looking for. And then obviously you've got the kind of modern vinyl production chain with the kind of audiophile attention to that. Just those first two steps in it, and then obviously the pros with the original copy that I've got today. It's a AAA cut, it's direct from the master tape itself, back from 1984, so it's almost like this historical artefact to have in your collection, and it sounds phenomenal. Bernie Grundman, like I said, he's just absolutely nailed it, kept it really punchy and alive sounding. So the digital step in the OneStep may disappoint some purists who were kind of after that AAA cut, but modern collectors and people who aren't too fussed about digital versus analog may, prize that kind of silent surface noise of the vinyl and the deluxe packaging. That's the real selling point here, I think, is that it's going to be dead quiet vinyl and you're going to get this deluxe packaging. And it comes down to, whether or not you want to get this or you want to get the original pressing. It comes down to what you value the most. Is it authenticity and AAA cuts and having a prestigious first pressing in your collection? Or are you going down the solely audiophile route? You want the highest quality possible in terms of the sonics and you want that deluxe packaging presentation. So for me, I think the Bernie Grundman cut, has already set such a high bar. But I am still intrigued to see what this new OneStep edition brings to the table. I've not pre-ordered it. I'm probably going to wait to see what happens when this comes out, what the review's like. Is it worth me parting with, near of £100 of my hard-earned money, or do I need to wait for a sale? We'll see. I'd love to hear what you think though. Are you planning to grab this OneStep? Have you pre-ordered it? or are you going to now go and hunt this original US copy or even another original pressing? Drop a comment in the comments down below, and if you've enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. That really helps the YouTube algorithm discover me, and I'd love to carry on doing these kind of videos for you guys. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.